Hey everybody, welcome back to When Words Fail Music Speaks podcast where we fight depression with the power of music. I am here with my good friend for over, what, like 10, 20 years probably?
Wow, what was it, 2005? So what? Yeah,
Mhm.
almost 20 years.
God, I feel old, yeah. This is Tim Pace. Timothy, I guess. What do you like to go by? Tim?
Tim's fine. Yeah,
I,
I usually
I never know, but
I can go by many names. I'm probably not going to say because I don't know what the language limit is on this.
I edit it so you can let the words
Nah,
fly, brother.
nah, I'd rather
So
not let you have to bleep anything out.
there you go. But yeah, but Tim's been my good friend since 2005. He's a singer songwriter, been in multiple bands. So we're gonna talk about all his adventures today. And yeah, so what's going on, man?
Not a whole lot, just a lot of work and a lot of music listening and kids and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, the reason why you're here really is you presented me with two Overkill CDs, which I think you were right, because one of them I think we listened to Horoscope,
yeah, we were
in
listening,
the car.
yeah, to that
And
earlier.
I really don't know much about Overkill, but they were a band back in the '80s. I found out, but yeah, Horoscope is a very classic album, I think.
Yeah, so they actually started, I think, around like 82. I know that Blitz was a bass player in a punk band called the Lubricants prior to that, and then Overkill eventually they had a name prior to Overkill. They will neither confirm or deny whether or not they named themselves after the Motorhead song,
Right.
which they do cover on their Cover Kill album. But they're out of New Jersey.
Mhm.
85 was their first release, Feel the Fire.
Yeah.
And earlier this year, I want to say it was the same month the Metallica record came out. I want to say April. Their, I don't even know if it's like 18 or 20 now at this point. Their latest record, Scorched, came out.
Right.
And I went to actually go pick it up the day it released, but the vinyl release came out a week later.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so all I picked up, that and the Metallica record came out on the same day.
Right.
So then I went back the following week when it had came out. It just so happened to be, I think it was Record Store Day, and I dropped a ton of money.
Ton of money.
I don't even want to.
Right, yeah.
I don't even want to think back to how much money I spent, but I bought quite a bit of records that day.
Yeah, there's been a few records right there that has been over like $300, because I bought that. I don't know if you all can see it, but there's a Black Label Society
Yeah, I see that
collection.
blasted hell. Yeah,
Yeah, $400, and that included all of his records up until the last one. I think it's Grimace Hits or something.
no, Doomsday Incorporated was the most recent one.
That's
Yeah,
the one that's not in that one.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
so it's first one to the
yeah.
yeah.
I have that one,
So
and
yeah,
I have albums 2 through 4. I've got Starker Than Death, 1919 Eternal, and Blessed Hellride. Those are the ones I have on vinyl.
right.
I had quite a bit of them on CDs, but I got to restart that CD collection. So
Yeah, the only one that I really want now is you probably know this, it's a Sonic Brew album, the one with the I think it's Jimmy Walker, um uh um like whiskey on the front of the album. They
yeah,
got rid of that,
yeah,
so I'm not sure.
yeah. I think they had
Problems with it.
when
Yeah.
it first came out. I think they had a licensing issue
Yep.
with they weren't,
Yeah.
I guess, given permission to
Right.
use the Johnny Walker bottle label,
Yeah.
which, having a solid white background really doesn't do the term Sonic Brew
Sonic, right?
any justice. But
I figured it would be a great publicity for
Right.
the brand Walker, for to be able, but if you can't get the rights, you can't get the rights, So
yeah,
yeah. So anybody, well, have you heard that Tim is a very knowledgeable in music, probably better than me. But I want to give you, I want to know a couple of things.
okay,
You have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
You've had many in the past, right? But in the past YouTube channels that you had, you've done like a career through bands, right? Because I distinctly remember you doing a Megadeth one,
yeah,
and you told us how many guitarists he's had, what he's been through.
right,
You don't do that anymore because now he focuses on pick us of the week. And they're great.
Yeah.
But I love the storytelling behind why did you stop that?
So I think I just kind of so the YouTube channel you were talking about specifically
With the older channel.
was the old channel.
Right.
So basically that just kind of came down to not really kind of having time and just kind of forgetting about it.
Yeah.
And then one of my really good friends, Ron from Florida, he was always kind of bugging me. He's like, you don't have any, visual props when you're just, because a lot of times, sometimes I'd name top 5 albums of 19,
Right.
whatever, or top 10 death metal albums or whatever. Now there wasn't any kind of visual aspect to it. And so then once I started the record collection, that's when I kind of combined the two a little bit. Mostly my videos, especially more recently, have been collection update stuff I recently purchased or gotten or whatever. But I have some videos where I do the video, but then I'm also on the phone with a friend of mine. We're discussing top 5, like Nevermore albums was one, top 5 albums featuring Ronnie James Dio.
Right.
That was on the old channel. But I've got some stuff where people do these kind of like jump on threads or videos, and basically what that is somebody in the what we call vinyl community, which is basically anybody who collects records and then has a YouTube channel essentially. Somebody might post a video that they want to kind of get started, see what everybody else presents. So like one of them was I think we had 5 albums with some kind of animal on the cover.
Okay, right.
Or
right.
some kind of fictitious animal on the cover.
Right.
So they would do their video, and then you would comment in their section, hey, I did my video. That way they could hit on your name and go to your video and do stuff like that. People do a lot of, what do you want to call them? Like contest giveaway type things. So they might, however many people respond with the same type of video, then that person will one example, a friend of mine, same guy, Ron, he had, I forget what the contest was. And whatever it was, I entered a video, and then he just took all the people who entered the video and pulled the name out of a hat and picked a prize. And so I actually by default got a prize.
By default.
What happened was there was like 2 things you could win. One was, I want to say like a $25 gift card or something. I forget where to. I want to say Walmart because I think that's where he was working at the time. And then another one was Anacrusis record. Anacrusis is a was basically a thrash metal band. And I do not recall where from. Kind of more like almost like a more progressive thrash metal band. Not quite like Voivod. So the person who won the contest didn't want the Anacrusis record.
Right.
But the only reason he had included that in that contest was because he had a signed copy as well of that same record.
Right.
So he was just kind of basically looking to unload the duplicate.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, since the guy didn't want that and he wanted the gift card, I'm going to send you the record. I'm like, well, that works.
That works, right, yeah.
Because he knew I wanted it. I don't know if he picked the second name in the hat and I won, but I really think he kind of cheated to help me out.
Yeah, right,
Which he does a lot, because I bought, I don't know if boughten's really the right word. I bought quite a few records off of his collection recently. He's been kind of distancing himself from like death metal more recently, so I've gotten some Suffocation, Obituary, Bolt Thrower. In fact, with the Bolt Thrower records that he sent me, I was able to finish the entire discography on vinyl, all 8 studio albums. Plus, I have 2 of their EPs on one record, Spearhead and Cenotaph, which were released, I think, like a couple years in between. I kind of want to count it as 2 different EPs,
right?
In the collection, but since it's only on one disc, I had this discussion with quite a few friends. They're like, no, you only count it as one record. Like,
which is weird.
Like if you have a double album, you're not going to count it as 2 records. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever.
No, well, yeah, you would count it as one because it's right. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But see, then I also had the same conversation because I had bought Nevermore's Politics of Ecstasy.
Yeah.
And it was a deluxe edition, which the second disc had the In Memory EP, which was, I want to say, the following release that came after that, or it might have been the one in between albums. But it was on a disc by itself. And the EP part of it was on the first side, and the second side there was like some demos or something. And they're like, well, if it came as one set, you got to count it as one. I'm like, but it was a totally separate release, and it's on a totally separate disc.
Right.
So
that would be a separate album.
I count it as a separate one for me.
Yeah.
Only bad thing with it is I don't have a cover for it.
Right.
So whenever I post it on Facebook or something, I'll usually go on somewhere, find a picture of the album cover, and kind of put it side by side with the record.
Right.
But I'm hoping to eventually one day get if at least just like a flat cardboard piece of, because I've heard it can be done. Right. I don't have the knowledge or anything on how to do it. But yeah.
Well, since you're the same age as me, I want to ask you the age-old question, okay? Metallica or Megadeth? Now, before we answer, I'm going to give you my answer, okay? I got two answers for this. Metallica was big back when I was growing up, in high school especially. So I loved Metallica back then. Now it's Megadeth, only because of consistency. You have records almost year after year, or if not, every other year, which is great. Metallica doesn't do that anymore. I'm not sure why. So which band did you prefer back then and now?
So I'm assuming a answer of both is not going to work.
No, no.
Yeah, I always say that just because there's a.
I mean, you could, but that's not a.
There's such a huge
difference.
Like you have to pick one or the other,
right?
Especially in the age of social media where it's popular to diss on Metallica, and it's popular to say Dave wrote them all, which he didn't.
Yeah.
No. I mean, he had writing credits on 6 total songs for 2 records. That doesn't even equal half.
Well, I know he wrote some on Kill 'Em All.
He wrote. He was part of
Ride the Lightning.
He was part of 4 tracks on Kill 'Em All.
Okay.
And he was part of the title track Ride the Lightning and Call of Cthulhu.
Because I know he redid the Horseman, but he called it the Mechanic.
So originally, actually, Mechanics was the original Metallica song.
Okay.
And
then when he left, they changed it to
so when he left, they didn't really care for the lyrics too much. They thought it was kind of cheesy,
right? And so sleeping with somebody else, right?
Yeah. So then they were like, so they changed some things in it, slowed it down a bit, put a middle section in there, and then changed the lyrics to it. And then since they didn't use his version, he went ahead and used that on the "Killing Is My Business" album. So Metallica was basically my gateway drug into heavy metal. Right.
I'm sure with everybody else's, like mine.
Especially for like people that like are our age, like, I wasn't a teenager in the 80s. I was a teenager in the 90s. And I was probably about 12. I think this was summer of 91. And I was at a youth camp, and the housing area, or whatever you really want to call it, was kind of more like a military barracks style. It was like a long hallway with a bunch of like bunk beds and stuff like that.
Right.
And I remember walking, trying to find wherever I was going to be staying for that week, and there was this song that was playing, and somebody, I don't know if they had a tape or cassette or whatever, or a CD, and eventually found out that it was Metallica, only because somebody was yet screaming, running down the walkway, Metallica.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, I figured out who the band is. And then
I gotta check this out.
Yeah. That song was Shorter Straw,
right,
which is off their And Justice for All album, which is still my favorite Metallica album. I think
so. Well, I think it's not a lot better than Master. Master was like an album in its own. That's Cliff's last album.
Right.
But I think that Justice is a better technical.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They went and kind of like, I think Jason Newsted's quoted as saying we put 300 riffs in every song.
Right. Yeah.
If I had to do another Justice album, I'd rather be in an Elvis Presley cover band.
Right. Which would be also good.
Which is pretty funny because in the video for the song One, he's actually wearing an Elvis shirt.
Oh wait, I did not know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
I gotta check it out again.
So that was like 91. And then when I got back home, I had to find friends that I could get copies of tapes from because I was brought up in a like I wouldn't really necessarily call it like super religious, but basically, non-secular household.
Right.
So music was always, in my life at some point.
But I'm sure like some of them were harder to get for you, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I had people, I would get my connection through school and be like, hey, do you have this? And they're like, yeah, I can make you a copy. And I never put what was on the tape on it because
mom and dad was, what is this? Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it had to appear as a straight up blank tape. But because most of the blank tapes I had were like different looking, that's how I associated knew which one it was.
Yeah. Smart.
Right.
Very, very smart.
So I didn't have my like first official Metallica album until I bought a cassette of And Justice for All, probably maybe junior or senior year of high school, and I had that still hidden too.
Right.
So yeah, Metallica is what got me into them. Then eventually I went back and found the older albums. Right. My brother had actually went to a camp maybe a couple of years later, and he traded something for a guy's original copy of Kill 'Em All.
Right, yeah.
But he didn't have like the cover or anything. It was just like in a cassette, just in the case and had the tape. And this was the Electra re-release, which had M.I. Evil and Blitzkrieg covers on there.
Right.
And so for the entire time, I always thought those were Metallica songs.
Yeah.
Until I learned otherwise when I bought the
Now you're talking about the garage days. Ink.
Yeah, Garage Ink. When I bought that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's not theirs. But when you listen to it, they make it theirs.
Yeah. I think that the only song on there that's really, really popular now, I haven't heard them play at all since then, is Am I Evil by Diamond Head. That was my favorite song from that album.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think they still play it to this. I haven't heard anything else from the original Garage Days, I think, right? Or did they play some?
So I know
like Crash Course from Brain Surgery.
I know they've done at least on the Justice tour. I know they did Bread Fan.
Okay. And they did So What.
They've done So What,
which is a very, very good
song. Which happens to be the song that I believe they were on the Black tour.
Yeah.
And that was the song that James ended up blowing his voice on doing that song. And like since then he got vocal coach, learned how to kind of do things a little bit more properly.
Right.
You don't exactly have a coach when you're starting out as a thrash band.
Right.
You're not really concerned. You think you're
because if you look at the band Slayer, which is great, he sings in the monotone.
Yeah.
So,
which for Slayer works.
I mean, yes,
that works.
And that's his voice.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, then I got. I remember. I can't remember what year it was. What I only remember is it was a Wednesday. The cable van pulls up in our driveway and we get cable for the first time.
Right.
And so then eventually I find MTV. So then there's at this time the Black Album's already come out, and so there's a couple videos from that, and I've gotten some of the tapes I've listened to, whatever, from their earlier work. And so like at that point in time, like Metallica's my favorite band.
Right. Yeah.
Even
mine too.
Yeah. They're still in my top 5.
Yeah.
Because.
But they're not number one.
They're not number one. Number one is Black Sabbath. Like once you figure,
and I'll be all right.
Once you figure out and you get back to Black Sabbath. Yeah. Black Sabbath number 1, Judas Priest number 2, Maiden number 3, Metallica number 4, Motorhead number 5.
That's a good 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's really the original 5. Because I think they came out at roughly the same time.
Yeah, so Sabbath comes out
in 80, and then
Sabbath comes out in 70.
Right, 70.
Priest comes out with their first one in 74.
Right.
Motorhead's first one was like around 77, I think.
And
was
then
when the debut.
79, right? 79 or 80.
Maiden was 80, and Metallica's first record was 83.
80, right? Okay.
And it should be note coincidence that 4 of the 5 are from the birthplace of metal, which is England, and then 4 of the 5 had a big shaping on Metallica.
Right.
So, but then through I think I was like in 10th grade at this point is when I figured out when somebody had said at this point I'd liked a couple of Megadeth songs, and I had a friend of mine make me a copy of Euthanasia, and I want to say Hidden Treasures.
Right.
But Euthanasia was like the first full-length Megadeth album I ever heard.
Yeah.
And so it still has a special place in my heart. It's somewhere in the top 5 for me.
Right.
So then I was in 10th grade, and one of my classmates was like, Dave Mustaine was in Metallica, right?
And you're like, what?
I'm like, no.
No, right, yeah.
Yeah, had no clue.
Right.
So then once I graduated high school, got in the military, started making my own real money. That's when I started, I found that the nearest CD store on base, and I was just gobbling up all the Megadeth, all the everythings that I knew at that point, and then taking chances on other bands and stuff like at that point I didn't even know that Ozzy was in Sabbath.
Right. Yeah.
And so then I go back and listen to the older Megadeth stuff. And for me, I think there's the biggest distinction between Metallica and Megadeth for me is I always think Metallica was the heavier band and Megadeth was the faster band.
Yes, they were. Because if you look at any Metallica and compare it to, say, Euthanasia, they're really, really superior in their technical past.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, so early on, I would almost call it a wash between the two, but because Metallica is in that top 5 for me,
yeah,
I would
gotta go with Metallica.
Yeah. Okay. So up to early 90s, I'm going with Metallica.
Yeah.
So Megadeth has gone through like Metallica did. They went through a lot of kind of style changes,
right, and a lot of member changes. Because I remember in your old video that we talked about on YouTube, you mentioned this guy, all in Megadeth, and really there was no changes in Metallica.
Right?
So.
Yeah, and changes in Metallica only happened because of death.
Yeah, I mean, and like Dave got out.
Yeah, yeah, but once they started recording, they only you had the death of Cliff, which brought in Jason. Then you had Jason, who got fed up, and that brought in Rob.
Right.
But basically, you've had the same writing team. It's still always James and Lars anyway.
Yeah.
But so the 90s and early 2000s kind of happened, and so the only album I didn't really care for up to that point was Risk. And I've tried to go back a couple other times and re-listen, and it still won't grind. The first 4 tracks,
I know Risk.
The first 4 tracks I really like.
Yeah.
Up to Crush 'Em. And I know that's a I don't know which I wouldn't call it a sellout song because I don't really believe in bands selling out. I believe in them doing what's best for them and what's best for a business.
Right.
Because
see, the reason why they got Crush 'Em to be so well known now is I think they worked with WCW back in the day, and Bill Goldberg had to Crush 'Em as a theme.
They did that, and then also because at the time Dave was living in Arizona.
Yeah.
And the hockey team, the Coyotes, would play that sometimes over the PA as well.
Which is a fantastic song, by the way.
Yeah. So then I got a chance to see Megadeth twice. I saw them on the Risk tour in '99.
Right.
And at that point, they debuted, at least to my ears, one of the songs that would eventually be on the next record, which was "The World Needs a Hero," and that was the sequel to Hangar 18, Return to Hangar.
Right. Yeah.
Which generally, when they do them live, they'll usually play them back to back.
Right.
And so, that kind of got me excited as what the future would bring for them. Then "The World Needs a Hero" came out. I thought it was better than Risk, but I thought it could have been better. And then of course you have Dave's injury that happened like a year later. Doesn't know if he's going to play guitar anymore
because he fell asleep on the chair, and I guess he fell asleep.
The way he fell, his arm was hanging like this way, and then they damaged some nerves. And so, you know, he had that situation. Then he eventually comes back. You know, he's healed or whatever. And, you know, at that point, prior to him coming back, he basically retired the Megadeth name. Like, I'm done because I don't think I'm going to be able to come back and play again.
Right.
And, of course, that sparks eventually the whole lawsuit with Junior.
Which I interviewed before, and he's a really nice guy. I got some flack for interviewing him. Because I interviewed him a week before his, I guess, the
incident.
Right, let's just call it incident. Yeah. So, and my mom was like, why are you promoting the? You know, I'm like, I interviewed him a week before. I had no idea this was coming out.
Right.
So that's something that the public needs to understand. This I just wanted to spread joy, and I don't think I would have interviewed him at the time. I would have interviewed him after the fact that he which he came out. You know.
Yeah. Wait till all that.
Yeah.
Had kind of calmed down a little bit, and they gone to the next controversy.
Yeah, because I don't believe in media if they after it ends. You know, I would rather wait until after it ends to make judges and come back. You know, but that's so yeah, but he was really nice.
There was a lot of confusion.
Yeah,
confusion in the facts and everything, and
I think he got off by like innocence or something.
Yeah, I mean,
everything's okay.
In the end, it has no bearing.
I still love the guy.
It has no bearing on my life, and So I mean,
But he technically started the second Megadeth band. He called the Kings of Thrash.
Kings of Thrash, yeah.
And he does that with Jeff Young, which is a guitarist that was on
So Far So Good, So What, the third Megadeth album.
Yes. Speaking of that, I want to ask you about this. Okay, so we're going to go through all guitarists that he okay. So we got Chris Poland, which is his first one, I think.
Yep, for the first two albums.
And then you have
Jeff Young.
So Far So Good, So What. And then you have Marty Friedman.
Which
lasted him like 10 years.
From Rust in Peace all the way through Risk.
Yep. And then you had, I get confused about this one.
So he had
Chris
Poland came back when he came back, basically, when he rebranded Megadeth with the System Has Failed record.
Right.
And he came in and did some guest solos and things. I think all the rhythm stuff was all Dave on that album.
Yeah.
He was actually intending it because he had previously retired the Megadeth name. He was going to have that as a Dave Mustaine solo record.
Oh, right.
And so, but they were like...
Which he had before with MD45.
Right. But they were like, you owe us one more record on the contract with Sanctuary, I think, at the time.
Yeah.
So he had...
Of course.
It's like, kind of like the Tony Iommi thing we were discussing earlier. Like, that was supposed to be a solo record. And they're like, nah, you got to put the Sabbath name on it.
Right.
So... I think Dave kind of knew where his legalities lose, so he did that. And so then when he came out with Endgame, which was the next record,
Union and Abomination,
which I think is the fifth best record
they've ever done. Okay. And that
is an excellently done record.
That was with Roderick.
That was with Glenn Drover.
Drover, yes.
So Drover was on that record.
Drover,
he was on Endgame as well.
Right.
Broderick comes in after Glenn left. He comes in on the 13 album.
13, and
then Super Collider. He's on that one as well. That's the reemergence of Junior coming back on bass on Super Collider.
Yes. After their core,
So he leaves after Super Collider. He and Sean Drover, the drummer, leave. They form Active Defiance, which is really good. And then from there, Kiko comes in, does the Dystopia record, and
how do you pronounce his last name? Because nobody can pronounce his last name.
That's why I said Kiko. That's why I left it at that, because I am not butchering any names.
Yeah, not even Dave can.
Yeah,
and the new one, I can't.
Timu or whatever his name is. Yeah,
Tico or something.
Yeah,
which I love the guy. The guy plays great. But
yeah,
but he has another name.
Yeah, Kiko was on the last two records.
Yeah. And then you got
the new guy who will presumably, if Megadeth does another record, he'll be on that.
That's up to release next year or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
out of all of those names, besides Margaret Friedman, because I know Marty's like lovable to everybody, who do you think was their best guitarist ever?
I'll say I think the
You can't say Marty.
No, I'll say I think the guitarist that complimented him the most, as well as saying like they worked so well together.
Yeah.
I think was Chris Poland. I
Yes.
think
The first guitarist.
it's a little hard to really get a feel for what happened on Killing Is My Business. There was you got production issues and whatever, but Peace Sells, which is my favorite Megadeth record. I mean the interchangeable solos and stuff like that. I mean, to me, I think just the way that record came out, and for the record to come out when everybody was high on heroin and everything else, for that record to actually come together is a miracle in and itself. I have the Dave Mustaine autobiography.
Oh, yeah.
And he was basically saying in there, he's like, I messed up, Dave's messed up, Chris is messed up, Gar's, we're all messed up, and how this record eventually came out, I have no idea.
Right. Chris was on Rust in Peace too, right?
No.
No. Or was that Marty?
Yeah, Marty was on Rusted Peace. Yeah, Chris came back and did.
Chris was for the first two, and
System Has Failed came back and did a few solos on that. Yeah.
Which I think that I like. PCL is great, but I like Rusted a little bit more, only because of Tornadoes of Souls and Lucretia. But then,
I will say that I think Peace Sells is the better overall record.
Right.
But I would say that if we were to compare the two as to a thrash dynamic, I would say that Rust is the better record in that regard.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anybody who's watching YouTube right now sees how many vinyl records I have. This guy here has over 1,012, right?
1,012 currently. Yeah.
So let me ask you this: for all the vinyl collectors out there that's listening right now, what would you say? What have you learned from collecting vinyl records up until now?
So I've been doing.
And then I have a follow-up question.
I've been doing this since April 2020.
Okay, so 4 years now.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the 5th year, I think. Currently in what I like to call it the vinyl year. My vinyl year starts starts at April 29th. So this is like the 5th year, I think. So
happy anniversary.
Yeah. There's a lot of things to learn doing it.
Yeah.
First and foremost, I collect what I want to listen to. You have a lot of people.
You got a lot of records, dude.
Yeah.
So you listen to everything.
Yeah.
Just like me.
Yeah. So you've got a lot of people that collect for value and want to get return value on things.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
Or just to have a bunch of shit. Sorry.
That's fine.
And just to have a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm not going to hold on to something if I don't like it. I mean, I've several times I've gotten back through my collection where I thought I was going to like this band. I really don't. I'm going to get rid of what I have of this band.
Right.
And thankfully for me, it's been nothing that I've spent a ton of money on.
Right. Yeah.
I really try when I want to find an older album. I try to not get the reissue because I want the original one because generally I can find it cheaper.
Okay. Okay. So. About that same situation you just said, what is the luxury of owning the first press as opposed to like a remaster? Because technically it's the same thing, only it's better sounding, correct? Or am I wrong?
So
I mean, like what's the better thing? Like owning the first print? Because I know everybody loves first print. I don't know why.
So
do you know why?
First press really comes into what I would consider your personal value of a record.
Okay.
And let me explain that.
Yeah.
So my favorite record that's in my collection isn't my favorite album of all time.
Okay.
So let me just clarify that. My favorite record in my collection is a first press Black Sabbath record, the debut.
Nice.
Which my wife got for me on, I want to say the Christmas that we moved into our house, 21. And I don't know how she didn't pay a lot of money for it. And it actually took me like 2-3 years to finally be like, how much did you pay for this?
Right.
You know,
And she's like, I don't know. Right.
she was like, it actually wasn't that expensive. But then again, my that expensive and her that expensive could be different.
Yeah, very much so, yeah.
But what I will say is there has not been one record in the collection that after taxes and shipping or whatever has been more than $60.
Okay.
I'm not going to go out there and spend hundreds of dollars on one record.
I've done that twice,
you know,
maybe.
even it would seriously have to be like one of 300 because it was a album that came out after vinyl basically stopped selling, and they did a limited issue of it, and there's like 300 of them. You know, artists signed, DNA blooded in a Ziploc bag,
right?
You know, that kind of situation. Like, I'd have to really get a lot of bang for my buck.
Actually, here's something I bet you didn't know we probably do, but Slayer re-released their Heavyweights, which was the first album. But their record is like blood liquid inside of the record. It's very weird.
Yeah, I might actually have that pressing because I do have that album, and it's a very dark red.
It's a blood red.
Yeah, color. So I haven't done any kind of research to figure out like what is actually in it or whatever. But there was one album. There was an album of theirs that I can't remember which one it was that did contain like a little pack of human blood, and I can't remember which one it was.
Ew.
But so anyway, going back to the pressing situation.
Yes.
So I prefer to try to get an original copy if I can, because generally it's to me, if there's a reissue version and there's an original copy version, I just much rather have the original copy version.
Right.
Where you kind of fall into a little bit of a kind of, I don't know, I want to really call it a trap situation, but basically where you kind of get you can get yourself into a little bit of a conundrum is when unless you have bought that original version at a store, you don't really know the condition you're getting.
Right.
Even when somebody shows pictures, they can put them at different angles, and you really don't see what you're getting.
Right.
So
shout out to eBay.
But in the event that original copy is way more expensive than the reissue, I just want to be able to listen to it.
Right.
So when you have a lot of times when you have the reissues, to actually go back really to your actual real question, which was remaster.
Right.
And so that's a completely different situation. So generally a remaster ends up you're basically most often you get the remaster, which is also remixed. So that's kind of like what happened with the Black Sabbath box set, the Tony Martin album.
Yeah, right.
Those albums needed a remix so bad. And what that basically is they go back to the original analog tapes and they lower things here, they raise things here. They don't really re-record anything generally. It's just doing something different in the mix to get certain things accented more.
Okay.
So like there's a bootleg version out of And Justice for Jason, which is the And Justice for All album where they've raised the bass levels on that album.
Right.
So that kind of falls into line with what you get with remix and remasters. So for me, like, okay, let's say, all right, I'll give you an example of a remix that was really, really good. And I'll give you an example of one that I really don't care for.
Okay.
And they're with the same band.
Oh, well, good. Okay.
So when Dave was on his little hiatus from having Megadeth, what he basically did was he went and was going to reissue the entire Megadeth catalog.
Right.
Go in there and fix some things, adjust some things, whatever. So Killing Is My Business, which has a different album cover than the original album cover, but that album cover that's on the reissue is actually the original drawing that Dave wanted for the Killing Is My Business release.
Okay.
They opted for something different. So when he got a chance to re-release it, he put what he wanted to have on there.
Right.
So, but the mix value, the production value is so much better than the original. The issue I had with it is the cover of These Boots, which is on there, which he never had permission to really do that song.
Really?
And what
that was a Patty something.
I can't remember her name.
I can't either.
But basically, the original artist didn't like the fact that he changed a lot of words, and just like he,
Yeah, many people don't. I mean, if you do a cover, try to stick to the words.
yeah,
And of course, Megadeth is heavier, so of course you can,
yeah,
that's around with the music. But they don't like when you change the words.
Yeah, and especially day back then, he was really just in an IDAGF type thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
yeah. Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. So on the reissue, it bleeps out a lot of what his newer stuff was.
Right.
And I can't stand listening to a bleeped out song.
It doesn't matter where you buy it. It's always,
It doesn't matter what I'm listening to. Even, I can handle those words not being in there, but I don't want to hear beeps all the way through my music. To me, it ruins my experience.
It does, yeah.
So that's one example. Kind of actually good and bad in the same record. But what I was really going to refer to was, so it hasn't been so much on the vinyl issues I've found, but on the CD reissues that were on that. The volume level is insanely high, which I didn't think there was really that much of an issue with the originals. And then on the So Far So Good So What record, the intro track Into the Lungs of Hell, which is the instrumental, he's added some like horn section things in there that just really don't really belong. The song Mary Jane, which is actually my favorite song on that album, he's got some like other like trying to make spooky noises, and it comes off as like really fake to me, in my opinion. So that's kind of where what I don't like when bands do reissues or whatever, when they want to add some stuff that really didn't need to really be there.
Right.
And then you can look at stuff like Ozzy when he reissued his stuff, where he had Robert Trujillo and Michael Borden re-record the bass and drums.
Right. Yeah.
And that takes Kears Lake and Bob Daisley out of the picture from getting any royalties from the music that they put on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, but he left Randy's stuff alone. And,
well, of course,
and I just think just because of the relationship they had, I don't think he was willing to. And I think a lot of things that happened with Ozzy within the last 20 plus years is so Sharon motivated, and that he just kind of does whatever she says.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the gist of it. Now the sound quality is generally going to be better on a reissue just because they're using a thicker vinyl. And what I've also seen a lot of times is an album that was one disc originally, they'll release it as a double disc. And what they do there is they're giving enough space in the grooves to get more of the sound quality in it. So they expand the grooves wider.
Right. So
the songs have more breathability. So that, like an example of that is Def Leppard's Hysteria.
Yeah. It's
not over an hour long.
No.
But it's a 2-disc record because they expanded those grooves a little bit, and you kind of feel
sound.
You feel more in there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And also, a mistake I have learned.
Yeah.
A couple of times.
Yes, please
make sure you read what you're really like. So I've gotten a lot of records off eBay.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And there's been a couple of times where I didn't completely read the headline of it. The first one was AC/DC's For Those About to Rock.
Great album.
And it didn't come with the album cover.
Oh, so there's essentially the LP without anything else?
And in the wording, it says record only.
Oh, and you didn't know.
Which I wasn't paying attention. I just saw the title of the record, how much it was for, and bought it.
Yeah.
And the second time, I thought I was buying, I think it was either the first White Snake or Slip of the Tongue, one of those two. And I didn't realize I was buying the promotional album cover art.
Oh, so you were just buying the jacket without the actual...
It wasn't even the jacket. It was the promotional cover art.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, and then that also happened when I was buying an inner sleeve for the first Faith No More record, We Care a Lot.
Right.
So when you're doing, especially on eBay, read what it is you're purchasing, so you know you're getting what you're supposed to get.
So when you got that record only, did you go back online and look for the jacket, or did you?
No. So I just kind of took it as a loss at that point.
Okay.
But then I went to a pawn shop in Casey.
Yeah.
It was rifling through their records or whatever. And so I bought that record again. And then what I eventually did was the record I didn't have a jacket, I gave to a friend of mine.
Oh, nice. Okay, yeah.
So, because like I said, I really don't feel any need to have duplicate copies of anything. If eventually the record wears out, I can just go buy another one. I don't need to store another one just for when that happens. But like you said, I have so many that I don't really, play the same ones, 4 or 5 times a month or anything like that. I mean, especially as I continue to bring more into the collection, just about every time I get paid.
Right.
So,
there's always a friend that will take your old music.
Yeah.
Because I've been handed countless vinyl records over the years, and I'm always grateful for it.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I have a first person of the Beatles. I'm not sure, but I think it's the first person of Abbey Road, which I got to show you guys for done to make sure. But it's all beat up and it's not worth anything, I don't think. But I love it because I love the Beatles and I love the person who gave it to me. So those are really come in handy.
Yeah.
So one more thing about Megadeth. Do you have what's that album? The one with Sweating Bullets.
Oh, Countdown?
Do you have that on vinyl?
I do not have that on vinyl. It is a very hard find.
Okay, so why doesn't they re-release anything like from Countdown before? He's Countdown and there's one album that he won't do euthanasia. I can't find that either.
So I have found quite a few euthanasia picture discs.
Okay, but I don't really like picture discs.
I don't either.
Right, okay.
And
good.
my main reason
because they don't come with the full
majority of the time.
It's just plastic over it.
Tool's Lateralus does.
That's a good album.
It has the album cover, and then when you take the disc out, they're picture discs.
I do have that, yes.
And then also, a lot of the times, from what I've heard, anyway, not from my own personal experience, but from what I've heard, most picture discs don't sound that great. I don't know if it's because
it's the picture that they put on the record. I heard.
Yeah, but I have a couple. Like I said, the Tool album, which sounds pretty good to me.
Fantastic, right?
I think it's the first Dealing with Demons album from Devil Driver, because I have both.
Devil Driver's a good.
And one of them is a picture disc. The other one's just a straight purple disc.
Right.
And both of those sound fine to me. But it is like you said, like I don't want to get the picture disc and I don't have the album art.
Right.
Because it's very hard to look at the album art while it's spinning.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And you don't have the stuff that's in the back. And generally picture discs don't come with any inserts or anything. You just have the disc and it's in a plastic thing.
Because I remember going to I forget what the site was, but I bought a deal Holy Diver album. It came with a art book. It's like a story based book based on the album, and it came with a picture disc, just like a plastic sleeve. I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? I mean, it's good. I have it. It's just like I'm never gonna listen to that one only because it's a picture disc.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm glad to have it. But I just thought they could have done a better job giving me.
Yeah. Every collector is gonna have their preferences on what they buy and how they buy and the reasons why they buy them and stuff like that. And like I said earlier, to me is I buy what I want to listen to, and if I'm not going to be able to listen to it, or I think I'm not going to have the quality that I want to listen to it, there's no point in me getting it.
Right. Or do what you did today. It's give me stuff you don't want.
Right.
Which I will always take.
Right. And it wasn't a situation of don't want. Let's be clear.
Right.
No, what happened was, the funny story about that is, so when I was looking to get some Overkill CDs on Amazon, that box set was on there for like $40-something.
Good price.
And so I was like, not right now.
No.
Maybe because I usually when I don't know why I do this to myself. Usually when I go find these type of deals, I've already spent a ton of money.
Yeah,
and it's kind of like I don't know if I could really spend that much more.
I'll buy that next month.
and feel okay with myself.
Right. Yeah.
So then when it came to time where I was going to buy it, it had actually gone down to $29 something. So roughly $30 for 6 CDs. two of which I already had, which were the versions I gave to you because
Right.
I wanted to keep the set together.
Right.
Um, so, and I've done that with records and CDs. So, I mean, to me, it's like I said, I don't like have like.
Because I know that you and Ron trade records if y'all don't need them, right? Or because I know that he sends you a lot of stuff, and you do with him too, right?
Yeah, a lot of it just kind of comes to like. So one time, he was looking. There was what was it? I want to say the Cherry Pie record. Warrant.
Yes.
And so he was like, if you find that, I'll send you this and this. I was like, all right, cool.
Oh, so you do like a bargain?
Yeah,
okay.
so I found it and sent it to him, and I think the records I got were, I think it was the Green Jelly record.
Ooh.
With
Serial Killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one with
and
pigs.
Something else.
I actually found it on a record day store. The Serial Killer soundtrack.
Yeah.
It's a great album. Yeah.
I actually have another.
That was amazing because I love Green Jelly.
Yeah, I have another one of theirs as well that I
think it's 333.
No, I don't have that one. That was the one right after. I have a more later album, like 2000 dishes.
Yeah. Okay.
I can't remember the name of it right offhand.
I actually saw them.
I remember. I got that, and I got Exhorter's More in the Southern Skies.
Got it.
Which he was looking to unload.
Yeah.
So, and then a lot of times, like if I buy something from him or we make a trade, he'll throw something else in there.
Right,
I think it's just so he can unload it onto somebody else.
And he knows you for a long time.
And then I'll check it out. And like he sent me some stuff that was one was kind of Cheap Trick-ish and one was kind of Journey-ish. I like Cheap Trick, but I didn't want two bands like that.
Right.
So I found somebody I could send them to. So
let's talk about your musical history. Because I know you were a singer. Not sure if you were a songwriter. We're going to get into that in a minute. But you had a band called Rusted Asylum with our friend Joe Triggers. I met him through Art, who recently passed away. So it was y'all two, and was it Joe's relatives or?
Yeah. So basically, it was a family band.
Right. Yeah.
His two cousins, which were brothers.
Okay.
At the time, Keith and Daniel. Keith played bass. Daniel played drums.
Yeah.
And so like the original incarnation of all that was Keith and Joe were playing guitar. Arthur was on bass.
Right.
And then he just kind of like, I don't know what his situation was. He just kind of got out of it.
And then Keith took over.
And Keith took over on bass. So it was, a one guitar unit with them. And then what basically happened with all that was I was working with this one guy. We were going to put together a thrash band. And we had a falling out that I won't really get into.
No.
I mean, it's not really worth explaining. It's so long ago, I don't remember the original reason.
Yeah.
But prior to that falling out, I had put an ad up in Music Gator looking for other musicians to join what we were doing.
Right.
And so I'm trying to remember if I got one or two phone calls. I think it was the second call. So like it may have only been one. Like a week after that, I think either Joe or Keith called me.
Probably Joe.
And was like, hey, this is what we do. These are the bands we're covering, the material that, we're doing.
Yeah, because y'all were like a cover band /
Yeah.
Oh, right, yeah.
And so he's like, these are the bands we kind of, do or whatever. And I was like, at that time, I really wasn't even sure if I wanted to do anything.
Right. Because the rest of the album was more like a rock band than a metal band, right? Technically, kind of.
It was kind of more of a combination.
Okay. Yeah.
So anyway, so it just kind of came down to like, I was like, I'll go jam with them, whatever, and we'll see what happens. So we did. They just told me a list of songs that they were doing at that time, and I picked however many of them to rehearse or whatever with them. So I showed up to the rehearsal, and I just kept getting invited back. So I just assumed just assumed I was in.
Right.
And
they didn't really give you if you were in there, just like, come on back.
It was just kind of like I kept showing up and they didn't kick me out. So, I just kind of assumed.
Must be doing something right.
But so at that point, we were doing Ted Nugent, Judas Priest, Alice in Chains, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue,
Right.
AC/DC.
But see, you already have original song that I really, really, really love, and I got the video somewhere. I'm not sure where it is.
Yeah.
And when I find it out, but Red River.
Yep.
Okay, so did you write that, or was that written by Joe or one of the?
So when I came to the band, they had a song that was written, and it was only music, and it wasn't that song.
Okay.
Which I eventually did write some music, write some lyrics for that.
Yeah.
I believe I pretty much wrote all the lyrics for anything original that we did, including that Red River song.
Yeah, that's a great song.
And I had been writing lyrics forever and never really had any kind of opportunity to do anything with them. Yeah. So writing lyrics, that just came natural to me to write stuff. And so what we did when we were writing our material was we really kind of drew off what our influences were. And so for Joe, his influences on guitar were really come down to three guitars: Zach Wilde, Slash, and Jerry Cantrell.
Okay, yeah.
So his playing mirrored that kind of combination of the three.
Right. And
then the other two were so Keith was naturally a guitar player. He really he never, in my opinion, he didn't have bass theory down.
Yeah.
So he would do what a lot of bass players do. It was more following the guitar riff and playing kind of with that. And it wasn't like the rhythm section that is bass and drums usually kind of work together. And so they kind of came with a, especially more so Keith, I think. It was more of the AC/DC influence of things and trying to kind of put that into what we were doing.
I guess because AC/DC is very, very basic.
Very basic, yeah. And
so that's the easiest music to play if you're learning.
And that's no slight to
either
of their playings.
Right.
But that was a big, huge band in their life. Was AC/DC, Led Zeppelin, that kind of stuff.
Have you heard of the saying "less is more"?
Yeah.
That's AC/DC.
Yeah.
Everybody loves. See, I've actually watched their live performances on YouTube.
Yeah.
And their concerts it look like locusts like jumping up and down, but they're really human,
Yeah.
I mean they bring in millions, so
yeah.
I mean
I'm a huge fan of Less is More.
Yeah.
And I'm also
which makes sense.
I'm a huge fan of songwriting, not playability, if that makes any sense. So like a band like Dream Theater, I respect their abilities. It's not a band I get into because at least even that much. I don't have anything on CD or vinyl of theirs.
Right.
I think Joe had maybe a copy of a couple things. But their song structures don't really keep with me. And
it's their music really, really long,
Really long.
I prefer
very kind of what's the word I want to look at? Say more. It's kind of tangent oriented. They kind of go in these different things or whatever. And I'm not saying that's bad overall, but to me, a song to me, I need to be able to feel that song.
Right.
And if I'm, constantly trying to remember how this part went with that part and whatever, I usually don't. It doesn't really resonate with me. So yeah, less is more is a big thing for me.
Yeah. So when you started writing songs, you said that writing comes natural, right? How do you progress in songwriting? I mean, do you look for inspiration outside, or is it like what you've experienced?
So,
because many people have different ways of writing.
Yeah. So basically, the way I was writing, was, it came down to a lot to what our influences were, and specifically my influence as vocalist.
Which I know Halford is.
Halford's there, Ozzy's there, Dio's there. Those type of guys. And what I would eventually, how I really started, which none of those songs eventually made the cut of what was going to be our album.
Right.
I was writing a lot of songs that I would have wanted to hear those guys sing.
Right.
And then I would come in and we, generally what would happen is I would write lyrics with a riff in mind, and I would do most of my lyric writing generally at work. There was a job I had at one time. I was working at Midwest Stamping, which wasn't too far from where Joe was staying at the time. Mm-hmm. And so I would usually get out of there about like 2:00, and I'd take these forms that we had for things, obviously not for lyric writing, but it turned into that. I'd flip it over on the back, right, and I'd write down what I was thinking for that song, for the lyrics and everything. And then what I would do is I would, after I left work, I had a few hours between work and going to class. So I would go over to his house and be like, hey, this is the riff I'm hearing, can and
you do this?
Can you do this, or something similar? And we would kind of hammer it out for about an hour or so. And generally, if I didn't have anything else that I came up with later that week, I keep coming over. We hammer out the basic details of the skeleton of the song. And then when we had band practice on Friday, the other guys would come and we're like, this is what we wrote. Yeah. And it kind of, they weren't really writing partners, so to speak, the drummer and the bass player. Yeah. We basically wrote everything from lyrics and music. And so, that's kind of how writing lyrics for Rusted Asylum started, was that way. And then eventually, once we figured out what we wanted our sound to be, then I was able to more shift my focus to not so much the lyrics changing. They were a bit darker. Yeah. I think that was the Alice in Chains part of it, and Black Sabbath to me, in the way that some of those more darker lyrics came in, and then the music itself was heavier than what we were doing before. So right. that was basically kind of how that songwriting kind of progressed, and how the songwriting went was, me writing something, bringing it to Joe, and we'd put it, most everything together.
I'm amazed that y'all didn't do an album, because from what I heard, Red River and most of your originals was like really, really badass. And was it the fact that it like life got in the way, or was it like, because from what I hear about the music industry, it's very, very rough,
Yeah. So like I said, we had 9 songs. We were really
9 songs is a full album.
Yeah, that we were really felt strongly about. Yeah. We wrote way more than 9 songs. But those were the ones, like, after a while of playing certain songs, you're like, I'm not really feeling. I don't think this is really working with some of the other stuff we've got going. Yeah. Because we really could have ended up with a variety of kind of sound, and we really were trying to nail down a sound. Yeah. But so basically, kind of what happened was, try to phrase this in a way, because I'm not one to really try to beat on people or anything.
Understood.
Yeah. So basically, things didn't work out with the drummer. Oh, okay. We were wanting some things, and
he wasn't down to participate.
It was more of like, in my and Joe's opinion, Daniel probably had the most overall talent in the band.
Okay, fair.
But it wasn't being expressed. Okay. Like, we had written a couple of the more recent songs that we really wanted to have double bass. Right. Yeah. And it just came down to a lack of trying to make that happen on his part. And for quite a while, Joe and I have been discussing. We're like, if we want to really want to move forward with this, we're going to need a different drummer. Right. And so it took a while to convince Keith, obviously, because that's his brother. But eventually,
it's always hard to release anybody from any band that you start up.
Yeah, and more so when it's your family. Right. I think it would have been done a lot sooner. Yeah. If that hadn't been the case. Yeah. So basically, I went off and got married. We came back from our honeymoon, and then we called a band meeting at McDonald's. We chose it's one of those situations where you choose a public place to avoid a scene, right? And it was basically, don't call me if you need somebody to play, and that kind of situation. So then we got on the search for a drummer, and
it didn't pan out.
I think with anybody's experience trying to find a drummer, any drummer that's in your area is already a member of like 12 bands. Yeah. Or you're trying to find the ones that's going to mesh with your music and stuff like that. And it never really kind of panned out. We had a situation where we thought we were going to get a combo, a drummer and another guitarist, because we had talked about that for a while, adding a second guitarist.
Yeah.
And we had a couple guys in, and we went to a couple different other people and stuff. It didn't really work out, and so then it just came to a situation because we actually had a guy that we could record the stuff. And so, but yeah, basically it came to a point where financially I had to, move because wasn't really making any money where I was. My wife at the time really wasn't making a whole lot of money where she was working. So we were like, we're going to kind of start over, and we moved, 2 hours away.
Yeah.
And that basically just kind of killed things.
Right. Yeah. Would there be any chance of Rusted Asylum getting just in the room and start jamming? Of course, with the right people.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I know Joe is like he's a new Joe, but I think that music is his passion, right? And music is your passion,
Yeah.
Who is to say that y'all don't get back together one day and just hey man, this feels great.
I think there's a lot of life and a lot of distance that would make it a big challenge. And by life, I mean, because when we started, we were like, so we're saying this is 20 years ago.
Yeah, right. Long time ago.
Yeah, so.
Because I was like 20 something when I.
Yeah, we were all in our early to mid 20s.
Right.
And not a whole lot of Daniel and Keith were married at the time.
Yeah, right.
I was fresh off of divorce number 1, a couple of years prior, and Joe was single as a dollar bill. So there really wasn't a whole lot of cares in the world. I did have my first daughter at that point.
Yeah.
So at that time, I was balancing school and job and child and band all kind of at the same time. So I probably had the most actual responsibility out of all of them.
Right.
But there wasn't, and we all lived relatively close. I think Keith probably lived the furthest away because he lived out in Dalzell area at that point.
Center's pretty close to Dalzell.
Yeah, so roughly for him, it probably took about 30 minutes because you got to go like deep into,
deep in the woods,
to the very edges of Sumter County to get to where Joe was, where we had what we referred to as the compound.
Yeah,
it was basically a farm type building that was all like cinder blocked, and we had a room in that area where it plugged everything in and did everything. So that made it easier to be able to do. And right now, I know that I think Keith lives somewhere in Columbia area. Okay. As do I. Right. Joe's still in Sumter. I have no idea where.
Joe's in Manning, I think.
Manning, yeah.
So where it's spread out.
Yeah, no idea where Daniel is. And at that time, like I said, we had a place to kind of jam at. I don't know if we'd really have an area. Neighbors don't usually like it when you do it in the living room because they can hear that kind of stuff.
Especially the drums. Oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So
unless you soundproof the whole house, but that takes money.
Yeah. So I think I just can remember everything that we did and stuff like that. And even though it didn't work out the way I wanted to, I kind of feel like I was able to live out what I wanted to do.
Okay.
At least have given it a shot and have written music and performed live, and had that experience of writing songs and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'm very grateful for the time that I did have in it. Right. So I don't feel bitter about having it ended. Obviously, I would have loved for it to have continued.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and a lot of bands end up that way. So I knew, and plus we were in an area that really wasn't that big for
music.
You didn't really have a lot of places where bands like us could play because most of the places were clubs where they'd have DJs and stuff.
Right.
And so we only played 3 shows in the 2.5 plus years we were together.
Yeah, because I remember watching y'all play at Sebastian's.
Yep.
And I think Phil was recording like a video for the whole thing or something. I'm not sure, but he had several cameras placed everywhere.
Yes, somebody recorded it. I do know that because I know
somebody has.
I know we ended up with a DVD copy of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you say you have? You said you have nine songs written and recorded. Are where are those recordings? And do you think you can? I mean, there's a possibility of
those
releasing
those 9 songs we didn't have. Okay, so like early on, back when we were figuring out band names,
Yeah.
you know, one of the names we had chose was Dark Horse, and so we actually kind of self-recorded, where everybody was recording at once.
Oh, okay. Okay.
A demo.
Yeah.
And it was mainly for us, so we could, remember how our songs went.
Yeah.
So we could, be prepared for when we come in, and we're not like, oh, how does this go again?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. And especially for a singer, you want to not be sitting there looking at your lyric sheet the whole time. You would like to have it. You'd like to have it memorized.
Right. At least a little bit.
Yeah, at least a little bit. Yeah. Because I remember there's like one song we were doing. I don't remember which one it was, and Joe's like, it's not sounding right. I'm like, well, he's like, just
why not?
he was like, don't look at your sheet. I'm like, but I don't remember it yet.
Right.
Like I don't have it down yet, so I can't really do that. And it was like a really brand new song for us too.
Really?
Like I think we probably only practiced it a handful of times at that point. Yeah. So those I don't think I think we were in a process of demoing it. Okay. We eventually had bought, because what we did was, so like everybody was responsible for their own personal gear as far as buying your own stuff. So I bought my own microphone. And then we, as a band, purchased a sound, big, huge, lots of knobs and switches thing.
Yeah. Mixer board or something.
Mixer board, mixer board. That's
one.
That's what it's called.
Yeah.
It was freaking huge, and we had to learn that on the fly. And stuff like that. So what we would do is we would go through and record things separately and put them together and stuff like that. I don't know if we ever put that on anything hard as far as a CD or anything.
And Dan and Keith had the bass and drums already, so y'all didn't buy those, like they were already. Okay.
Well, that bass was actually Arthur's bass.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And so all those, like I said,
and the drums, I guess, were already.
Yeah, because like I said, when I joined, it was already pretty much they'd been together for a couple of years, I think, at that point, just kind of jamming or whatever. Yeah. So. And then I guess they decided to take it a little bit more seriously and find a singer.
Right.
So, but yeah, I have no regrets for that time.
Oh, good. Yeah, it's always a good thing when you find stuff that you want to do and that you love to do.
Right.
It's always good to remember, the good things.
Right.
All right. Okay, so we got the last question of the interview, I guess. And this is my question I ask for everybody. A song, an album, or an artist that you can listen to, but you can't tell me, your wife, your kids, how it makes you feel deep inside your soul. Is it one song, album, or artist, that you can listen to, but you can't tell me how it makes you feel. It's so in you.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah.
At first, I thought you were trying to, in a roundabout way, talk about a guilty pleasure.
No. Well, first, okay, so let's do that first before we answer that one. What is your guilty pleasure? I like, who the hell thinks I want it that way? Backstreet Boys.
Okay.
I know that's not metal or
right,
but I love that song. It's just groovy. So, what would be your guilty pleasure?
I would probably say I don't know if I can narrow it to I can narrow it to a genre.
Yes, let's do that.
Funk music.
Ooh.
Really. And I think it's so much of the bass lines.
I don't think that would be guilty pleasure because funk music is good.
Right. It is.
Guilty pleasure, like I don't want anybody else to know. Well, funk is.
To me, a guilty pleasure is something like you don't really talk about with a lot of people because not a lot of other people.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
Right, yeah.
Like so it's like I don't have anybody to talk about this type of music. So I just listen to it by myself.
Yeah.
So but to me, it's the bass lines in that stuff are usually so crazy.
Yes. so intricate,
so intricate and so just kind of like
technical too.
technical,
Yeah.
Bouncy.
Yeah.
A lot of different techniques of playing, all in the same song. You can be
Right.
It can be from finger to thumping to slapping to all that kind of stuff. And bass is by no means my favorite instrument to listen to.
Okay.
But it's just the way that it's put that way.
Yeah.
To me, and the energy in the music, because I'm very much an up tempo type of music listener. Like I don't usually listen to whole lot of slow music, even though I do like doom metal a lot.
Right.
But I'd say funk is probably my guilty pleasure.
Okay. Before we get to the last question, So, what would be your favorite instrument to listen to? Since you mentioned that.
My favorite instrument, it has and always will be guitar.
Yes.
Always will be guitar.
Mine too. Yeah. Yeah, because I like to see the individuality of each player.
Right.
I always compare like say Glenn Drover to Marty Friedman. Which one's better. I really can't tell because I think each person has their own ability.
Right.
And it shouldn't be judged.
Yeah, and their own playing
Right,
their own playing style, and that generally comes from their influences
and what the album needs.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, those albums with Marty probably needed Marty's playability.
Right. And
same thing with Glenn.
And also with those two guitarists in mind, you have they neither one of them were the mastermind of that band. That was Dave's band.
Yes.
Always had been.
Always will be. Probably.
So, how much of their creativity was allowed to flourish in that kind of scenario. Yeah. So then you would probably look to other works that they've done.
Right. Yeah. My go-to instrument it's kind of a tie for me because I love guitars. Guitars was my favorite instrument ever. I've sometimes learned how to play guitar, but not really well. But my other instrument is drums. I love the double bass. I always like it when songs include the sound of a machine gun played with the double bass.
Right.
I don't know if you.
And I've actually had
I guess that's why if you wanted
a small / debate / argument with in regards to drums, because a friend of mine was like, I don't remember exactly how the conversation got started, but basically to the effect of the guitar is what you headbang to. I said, oh, no. The drum is what you're headbanging to.
Yeah.
Because the song can start out, because you can have a song that starts out with just guitar.
Exactly.
And you're like, okay. And then once the drum pops in, like you're headbanging on rhythm. You're headbanging on that drum beat.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. What's the loudest concert you've ever been to? And I believe you know mine because I was with you. But I'm gonna get your
so
before I do mine.
So that can be a loaded question, because it comes to you have to keep in mind venue. Is it outdoors? Is it indoors? Is it bigger? Is it smaller?
Right.
The loudest concert I've probably ever been to. I would probably have to go say the Slayer show that you and I went to. Slayer, Testament, and Carcass back in 2016.
That's right. Because first of all, Slayer is amazing, and we saw him when not Jeff Hanneman, who's that other guy?
Gary Holt.
Yes, Holt. I can't forget you. Yeah, but I think okay. So we went in there, and I heard my favorite song, which is Disciple.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when they started playing it, I could hear my eardrums about to burst. Like, what is this? I don't like this. So I texted on my phone. I'm going outside for because I thought my ears would blow out of my sockets.
Right.
And I know that you say it through the whole thing, which is great. The reason why I think that didn't happen to me is because Slayer, it was inside House of Blues that indoors. I think they had their amps boosted to like 32 as opposed to 10, because they're we're so loud in that room. I can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the volume really in that venue, the acoustics really bounce around a lot too.
Yeah.
It's not loud in one specific area. It's loud everywhere.
And I think that their setup was mainly for only outside stuff.
Yeah.
And not inside.
Yeah, I mean when you
Slayer. I mean
when you when you do one-off gigs, it's better. It's easier to know. Bring specific equipment.
Yeah.
Because you're playing that one-off gig.
Right.
But when you're on a tour that includes in and out, it's a little harder to probably. Yeah. I would assume that's what my actual favorite memory of that show.
Yes.
Was two ladies.
Because I stood outside and watched TVs. Yeah.
There were two ladies in the audience.
Right.
One was wearing this like tie-dye shirt.
Okay. To a Slayer?
Easily in her 60s. Easily in her 60s.
Way to go, Grandma.
And she was getting down to the opener, which was Carcass. And I looked at her, and she looked at me, and I was just nodding my head, and she nodded her head at me. I'm like, all right, cool. And then later on, I think this one lady had to have been there by mistake. Like, either the day before or the day after was going to be like some kind of gospel thing. Oh, no. This older black lady was sitting, and I'm like, okay, you must have thought something different was going to happen here. But, I mean, she seemed like she was maybe enjoying it. I don't know. Loudest.
Was she not digging it, though?
I mean, she just kind of had more. She just kind of had like a confused look, like a neutral. Okay. Like maybe she was gonna try it out for the first time. Yeah. I don't know if she was somebody's ride. Like I'm not sure how that worked out. I will say what my favorite concert I've ever been to is. So there's kind of a couple of levels on this. My favorite show was being able to see Judas Priest in 21 with Sabaton.
Sabaton. Okay, so did you bring out tanks and stuff? Oh, nice. Yeah.
There, in fact, the tank was where the drummer was sitting.
Oh, so he was sitting in the tank. Okay.
And at one point, the vocalist was wearing a gas mask while singing a song. I don't remember which one it was.
Right.
That was my favorite show.
Sabaton's amazing.
My most fun show was Anvil.
Oh, yes. The one that came in and sent it, right?
No, Anvil came to New Brooklyn.
Yeah.
And I mean, there was like nobody there.
Right. Yeah.
But it was the.
I really wanted to go with you, but I couldn't for some reason.
Yeah. I had the most fun in that show because of the overall experience. I got to sit and talk with Rob Reiner, the drummer.
Right.
Just kind of shooting the breeze with him.
Yeah.
And then later on, I got to get a picture with him. Then eventually, I got a picture with Lips as well.
Right. Okay.
Shaking his hand. Just a couple words.
Nice.
He was just so energetic and funny on stage.
Yeah.
I did have to tell my wife when she was doing a Facebook Live video of one of the songs, and I saw him grab the vibrator off of the cabinet, and I was like, "You might want to turn this off soon."
Right, because you know what he's going to do.
Because I know what's about to happen. Yeah. You don't, and I know you're not putting a privacy setting on this video.
Right.
So, then. Another really cool experience for me was the Crowbar show, getting a chance to meet Kirk and his wife.
Man, Kirk was so nice.
Get a picture. I got an autograph set list.
Yeah. The other thing that me and Tim wanted was albums, but they didn't have it in time for.
They didn't have any.
Because I wanted an album from Slam for me, but
I was able to get
the set list. You brought home.
I got the set list, and then my wife also bought me a Broken Glass T-shirt, which is my favorite Crowbar album.
Yeah.
So
nice, good day, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think I probably ever had a bad experience at a show that I can.
Have you ever slept through a show? I have.
I slept through a movie, but not a show.
Oh, okay. Because I saw Machine Head back in 2005, probably. This was during the Blackening album run, and 3 Inches of Blood, and they just put me to sleep.
Oh yeah,
I just slept through the whole thing.
They are an acquired taste. I will say that.
Right, they are a very acquired taste, and you got to really dig their stuff. Yeah. But that was the only show that I ever fell asleep on.
I haven't fallen asleep at a show, but I have completely ignored a band.
Oh, really? Okay.
So me, my first wife, another friend of mine, we went to Richmond and saw Tool, and they had Tomahawk was opening the show,
Yeah.
which was one of Mike Patton's projects.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, Mike Patton, Faith No More. This
is gonna be good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was the exact opposite of good. I don't know if it was just.
I mean, the bands he's getting now, like 24 bands or something. Because he has
I don't even
Bungle,
know.
Faith No More.
Faith No More, Mr. Bungle,
Tomahawk.
I think he's actually still doing Tomahawk.
Yeah.
I haven't even bothered to try and listen to any.
Because I know you said his name before, but Mike Borden was the drummer for Ozzy at one time, and he was a Faith No More's first drummer, right?
Drummer, yeah.
Yeah. So it's always good to know that he's drumming.
Yeah, but they were just absolutely horrible. And like maybe a song and a half, 2 songs in, we were just all standing talking about the Tool songs we wanted to hear. And then
Tool was good though, right?
Oh,
okay.
Oh my!
Yeah.
If you're looking for an energetic stage, you're not going to get it.
No,
You're going to get a very visual and kind of deep kind of performance. The other time I stood around was so I went to go see Kiss in 2000.
Kiss was amazing.
They were touring with Nugent and Skid Row, which at the time it was not Sebastian Bach at that time. I don't remember who the singer was at that point. They probably had as many singers as Dave's had guitarists.
Yeah, they got Lizzie Hill singing for them.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah,
but they were. The Skid Row was just so boring. Like I didn't even face the stage. I turned around and was like talking to people because I'm like, I'm not gonna, if you're not bringing the energy, I'm not gonna bring some to match you. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I guess Skid Row is a unique. It's like a more. You gotta know their stuff, to enjoy their show.
Yeah.
Although I don't think they've really done anything new in quite some time, right?
They put out.
It's been a while.
The Gang's All Here.
Okay.
I want to say it was last year or the year before.
Okay. And that was.
And I actually dug that record.
Okay.
I thought it was really good. I think to me it was close to as being on par with the Sebastian material.
Yeah.
As to anything else, and it would probably be the only non-Sebastian album I would probably ever get.
Okay.
But to answer the original start of the question, which was album, song, band that I can't really express myself about.
Yes.
So I would have to go with the debut album from Candlebox.
Ooh, good one.
That album so I have knowledge of that album being an album that got a friend of mine through sobriety.
Oh,
great. Me, one of my best friends. He's like, when I was first getting sober. Yeah. This album was like always on. Everybody had a copy of it. Everybody was trying to borrow everybody's copy of it. You know.
And and for everybody else, that was the album with "Far Behind" on it.
"Far Behind" was the lead single. They did a video for it.
I think that's her one and only single, right? One and only hit song.
They had that, and I think "You."
Okay, I don't think I've heard.
I think "You" was a single as well.
Okay.
But "Arrow" is such a great song. There's not a song on that album that I would skip, and I am desperately trying to get a copy of that on vinyl.
Yeah. But if you would please tell us how that album helped your friend with sobriety.
I really don't know.
Oh, okay.
To be honest, he never really kind of gave an in-depth answer with that. He was just like that. I just listened to it so much, and whatever. Sometimes it can be the lyrics to the songs. Sometimes it can just be the feel of the songs.
Right.
Like if you're just in a heavy mood and there's like just a certain sound that you hear that kind of raises you up a little bit out of that.
Yeah, and that's what we try to talk about on this podcast. Is you never know when music is going to heal you.
Right, and that's why I put a post together, I think, on Facebook, or I did something where just for information purpose, I am a Christian, and
I am too.
There's a lot of people out there that say you can't listen to such and such music. You can't do this if you're a Christian. And in my opinion, I believe that secular music is just as important as any kind of worship or praise music, because a lot of worship and praise music kind of it skips over the humanity of a person, if that makes any kind of sense to me.
Right.
Because usually, first and foremost, worship and praise music is generally some kind of thanks or praise or giving credit or whatever
Right.
To God.
Right.
And a lot of times that's not going to resonate with someone who isn't feeling like that's happened in their life.
Right.
You know, a lot. I mean, I listen to music for quite a variety of reasons. I listen to it for the entertainment value of some music. There's some music that I take completely seriously because of what it like, especially the Christian rock and metal bands that I do listen to. There's a message there that I want to, to hear
Right.
in that way. And there's bands like AC/DC that's just strictly an entertainment thing for me. But you've got so many artists that have gone through things, that have gone through certain traumas. And I think it's important that somebody is able to listen to somebody else who has had a trauma that is similar to theirs and know that there's a way to come through it. Even if they're not completely, to the point where they can or are willing to accept God or Jesus or anything like that.
Right.
But they can accept that, the worst alternative isn't the only choice, and it's definitely not the best choice.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They can see a way out of drug addiction. They can see a way out of abusive relationships. They can see a way out of coming back from a broken relationship, a breakup or whatever. They can see past the having gone through the death of a close friend or a child or a loved one or something like that. They can see that it is possible to continue on and rebuild your life. You obviously will never forget those experiences. You'll never forget the people that you've lost, right. But you cannot dwell on those things. You have to move forward. And anybody who has ever been in your life that is no longer with you would want you to continue making your life the best for yourself.
Right. Yeah. I agree. Now I do have one very last question, and then we'll go. But you mentioned being Christian, and I'm a Christian too. Full blooded. But I know that Slayer was asked, do you all worship Satan, because they have like Satan imagery and everything at the shows, crosses going up and upside down and everything.
Right.
But the singer Tom said that he just does it to F with people, right? So let's see how to put this. Do you think that it's more like a gimmick now than ever, that more artists now are turning towards that I guess demonic look?
Well, I definitely think that now there's been more of a resurgence of it.
And do you know why that is? I mean, is it the world we live in now, as opposed to?
No, I think that for one, the content and the imagery sells.
Right. But that sells more.
Right.
Than just
right.
Christian songs.
Yeah. So I think there's a few layers to this.
Okay.
So bear with me on this a little bit.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, there are bands that do it for a gimmick.
Flair.
Right. And to me, music is just another form of art. You've got movies, you've got paintings, you've got sculptors, you've got whatever.
Right.
Now, what I would say is that I would say of the bands that put that kind of message or lyric content or whatever you want to call it, stage show, that put that kind of thing out there, I would say only 3% really understand Satanism and Satan himself.
Okay.
Or as it pertains to an actual belief system.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is black metal is probably the most famous for being anti-Christian. All right.
Because I know that Behemoth is more like anti. I don't think they're anti-God. I think they're just doing it just for show. Even though the singer, I forget his name.
Nagar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that he doesn't believe in God, but that doesn't mean that.
Okay. So
Right.
yeah. So that was actually going to start my point.
Okay. Good.
Is that okay? So with black metal, which comes from Norway, generally speaking, is where the big kind of birth of it came from.
Yeah.
And so what you have is you have a lot of layers to that. The first layer to that is this is an area that was part of the early hundreds of years ago, part of the first Crusades. And so what that was you had Christianity in whatever form it was, most likely Catholic, because that's really what the Crusades kind of started from, was from the Catholic Church. And what it came through and did was trying to erase the history, the pagan history, the culture of what was going on there.
Right.
And so that's the big beef of some of the people just in general of that area. You know, that's their biggest gripe with the Christian religion, is because it was basically a hostile takeover.
Okay.
And what's the biggest nemesis you can think of opposite of Jesus Christ and God? Well, that's Satan. He's the only one that has anywhere close to that amount of power, and it's still not even that close.
Right. Yeah.
Agreed. So a lot of the people that are in these bands are atheists, which doesn't really make it any better. But they needed some way to attack the church. And so that's when you had also during that time, some members of bands were doing church burnings,
right,
and stuff like that. There was a book called Lords of Chaos, which eventually became a movie, which talked about that. And I was actually very satisfied that the movie was really close to what the book depicted,
right,
as far as like events and how things happen and stuff like that. So you have that, and then you also have the fact that the black metal bands really didn't care for the satanic death metal bands, because they really looked at them as imagery and trying to sell, and they looked at themselves as, trying to be,
real worshipers,
the true evil or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So to me, a post I actually did make, I do know that I put it on Facebook. I had a post where I was basically saying how people could think that I could listen to atheistic or satanic bands and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for me, what grabs me the most in any genre style of music, regardless of what the message is the music itself. How do I feel about the music itself?
Right.
The instrumental playing. That's always kind of been number one to me.
Right.
As far as music that I listen to that I'm not specifically listening to for a specific message.
So lyrics are secondary. The music is first.
Lyrics are secondary for music that is not something I'm going to go for meaning.
I agree.
So if I'm listening to Striper, if I'm listening to Petra or any other heavy metal hard rock Christian band,
Demon Hunter. Yeah.
Demon Hunter, right? Yeah. I'm listening to see what that actual message is. So it's actually more difficult for me to find a Christian death metal band that I like, because I want to make sure I'm hearing what their actual message is.
Right. Make sure
not just
true.
Not just they say they're a Christian band,
but are they really?
But is that what they're saying in their music?
Right.
Whereas a regular death metal band, I don't care what they're saying, because that's not what I'm looking for with them.
Right. Exactly.
So that's like part one. The other part is that I actually feel sorry for the musicians that are putting that message out. And I think there's a couple of reasons why that generally happens.
Yeah.
So, like I said, in Norway and the Scandinavian countries, Crusades and all this kind of, gave this kind of backlash and this bad attitude towards Christianity. More American kind of version of this is what I would like to call the church hurt and false Christians.
Yeah. So
church hurt occurs when you go to a church and some part of your life they magnify and ostracize you because of. So that's not the Christian way at all. Okay. And the second part of it is when you have people who claim to be Christian saying and doing things that are contrary to the actual beliefs that are in the Bible and the ways that we've been instructed to be. But people believe that the people who are acting this way is kind of like when people say they hate cops because they've had a bad experience with cops. Well, not all cops are bad, and that's actually not really a real cop if he's doing those certain things.
Right.
That's not really a real Christian if they're doing those type of things.
Right.
You know, so like the Westboro Baptist Church, you know,
oh God, I can't.
they were going and protesting funerals of people who were gay, gay military member. I know they thought they were going to protest Jeff Hanneman's thing, and
really?
and I was like, that's not the one you want to do.
That's a really
I'm just
bad
telling
thing.
you, that's really not the one you want to do.
I think we heard that that the Hells Angels go in like because I heard, I don't know how true this is, but people hire them or go to the funeral and protect them from the Westboro Baptist Church people.
I think that happened.
Not to mess around with them.
I think that happened with the Dio funeral.
Oh, okay, that sounds familiar.
But I think they knew better with Jeff, and just because the average Slayer fan doesn't like Christians anyway, so they're really going to have a party if you come there with protest signs and telling them they're going to hell and things of that nature.
That's one breed of fans I generally am not fond of aggravating or annoying the Slayer fans, because that's a different
Slayer fans like you're like to say the word hardcore,
right?
Because
insane would be one of them too,
right?
Know?
But like I'm a Slayer fan. I've liked them for decades,
right?
But you got the people that carve Slayer in their arm,
tattoos on the back,
and do kind of things like that. And you've got those similar kind of extremes in some other fan bases, but it just is so prominent in the Slayer like culture and community.
Right. Yeah.
So I think they kind of. I think maybe they did their research a bit on that one, and there's just that's not worth it. Like they don't even need the Hells Angels; they're just going to do it themselves, and they would do it because they would enjoy it.
Right? Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think they kind of backed off that.
Yeah, two of the biggest funerals that I've ever seen in the music business is Jeff Hanneman's, Slayer guitarist for anybody that doesn't know, and Dave Brockie, which is Odorous Uranus War. I think those guys have a really big following. I don't know who has more, Gore or Slayer. I would like to think that Gore has more underground fans.
Right.
The Slayers are well known, But I mean, Gore has rooted in music history that can far past any other band, I think,
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's why they got more people that come to the funeral, So. Because I haven't heard of it. I don't know what not Jerry Lane Staley. I don't know how many. Because back then we weren't as more. I guess social media back then wasn't formed as well as it is now.
Yeah, I don't even think it was really at all because he passed in 2002.
Yeah, which I guess.
And so like MySpace even wasn't even created then.
2010.
With MySpace was like 03, 04 maybe.
Yeah, but that still wasn't anything like.
Yeah, that wasn't even. Yeah, it wasn't like you were getting mass information. From people.
Yeah.
Which you have to be careful. When you're getting mass information, like how much of it is information.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what we're struggling for today,
Yeah.
With this new political thing, which we're not going into, but it's I don't do politics at all, and I'm not sure if you do.
Yeah,
but I try to stay away from politics. As
politics has its place, but this isn't the place for it.
No,
here. So yeah,
today is all about music. So yeah, so. I thank you very much for coming on, and I do want you to come back because we do have to talk more about music, and we didn't bring up Cannibal Corpse, but I just wanted to know your thoughts on Cannibal Corpse later for the next one, So yeah, so this has been fun. So thank you very
cool.
much for
Appreciate it.
on. And for everybody listening, always remember when words fail, music speaks. Bye guys.